Hi my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to do my January reading wrap up. I read 15 books in the month of January, so let's get into the video and see what they were. I just want to state as a disclaimer, sometimes I can get a little passionate, sometimes I will give books low ratings, sometimes I am a little bit harsh, but I never mean that as a critique against the author, because they do something that I could never do. I could never publish a book. I can barely form a coherent thought, never mind an entire plot. I'm not meaning to disrespect anyone that likes a particular book either. If you like a book that I dislike, then I am so happy that it found you. But I kind of wish it hadn't found me. You know, like, everyone has different tastes. Like, no one reads the same book and gets the same feeling out of it. It all depends on your personal experiences and your life and your tastes, and that's fine. I've got other people that love certain books that I cannot stand, or that I'm just flat out not interested in. Everyone's got different tastes, and that's what makes the world beautiful. But with that, let's get on into the video. The first book I read this month was Lore by Alexandra Bracken. Now this is the beautiful Fairy Loot edition. Like, it is stunning, and I have to show you the naked book as well. Like, oh my god. She is beautiful. Under the dust jacket as well, absolutely stunning. We love this edition. This edition is beautiful. This is an urban fantasy standalone based around Greek mythology about our main character Lore. In this world, the Greek gods are real, and once every 7 years, Zeus punishes some of the gods by making them come down to Earth and live as mortals for 1 week every 7 years. If a mortal manages to kill a god, then they get their power and immortality, and they become that god. Now, our main girl Lore, she wants nothing to do with this until she comes across one of the gods that convinces her to ally with them in order to get revenge on the people that murdered her family. So she gets dragged into this world and she sets out to kill a god. It just didn't vibe with it. It didn't hit for me. It was fine, but it was just fine. You know, it was a middle of the road. I gave this book 3 stars. While I liked the Greek mythology aspect of the book, and the characters were pretty well developed, I just never connected with the story, like, at all. The main thing that bothered me about this is the fact that it was set in New York. It just felt like a weird place to put a Greek mythology based book. Like, Athens would have made more sense. Hell, even Rome would have made more sense. And anytime you see New York in any piece of media, it basically becomes its own character. And I don't like the character of New York. I am a country bumpkin. I'm not a city girl at all. So, especially because Lore and the other main character, Miles, were so obsessed with their city. And I find that that is a common thing for people that love New York, that it becomes almost like an obsession. And I don't want to diss anyone that is from New York or loves that city, but it's just something I will never understand, and it's kind of off-putting. The next book I read this month was Do You Want to Start a Scandal by Tessa Dare. This is a book about Charlotte and Piers. Now, we meet Piers in the second book in this series, but this is his story as well. One night these two are at a ball together and there is a scandalous tryst in the library. Now, all she knows is it wasn't her. It wasn't these two having this tryst, but she doesn't know who it was. And to save her reputation, she is determined to find out, because otherwise she will be forced to marry Piers. So these two together set out on a mystery to find out who it was that was having that tryst in the library. I gave this book a 3.75. This was really fun. It was sweet, it was swoony, it was a little bit ridiculous, but overall it was a good time. The mystery part just didn't work for me. I was a little disappointed and kind of underwhelmed by the mystery, but I really did like their romance. I loved their banter when they were so frustrated with each other. It was so funny. And for the sex ed talk that her mother gives her alone, it is worth reading this book, because that was just, it was ridiculous and it was hilariously funny. This is like mildly spicy, I would say. I gave this a 2 chili pepper in the spice rating, but overall it was a fun time. I gave it a 3.75. The next book I read on my Kindle, and that was Free and Luca by Victoria Evelyn. I read the first book in this series at the end of last year, and oh my god, I fucking love it. I love it so much. So I read the second book this year. I love it. I love it just as much. It's so good. If you liked the Ice Planet Barbarian books, read this series. Oh my god, it's incredible. So we meet Luca in book 1, so I would recommend reading them in order. You can read them as standalones, but you will get so much more out of it if you read them in order. I've only read the first 2 so far, but I am planning on 100% binging this series throughout the course of this year. I'm so excited to read the rest of the books in this series. On this planet, they're having fertility issues. The men outnumber the women like 20-1. And on this planet, the men go to husbandry school so they can be picked as husbands by the women. And I love the concept of husbandry school. I think that is just so cute. It's so fun. In this book, Luca has been working at a research facility to find out why birth rates on his planet are so low. But after years of working tirelessly with his research, he finds out that there is a sinister plot where he works to abduct compatible species and kidnap them for breeding. And he becomes enraged by this, so they kidnap him and they hold him hostage. One of the girls they've kidnapped is our girl Alice. Now, on the way to take Alice to her cell, she walks past Luca and he's all in chains and everything, and Luca starts acting differently, and this triggers the scientists to try and put the two of them together to see what reaction happens and to see if there's a mating bond. And this story is so sweet. I love this story so much. They can't communicate because his translator chip hasn't translated to her language yet, but oh my god, it's so sweet. I don't know why, because Insta Love gives me the ick, but Fated Mates, chef's kiss. Absolutely beautiful. I love it so fucking much. It is my absolute guilty pleasure trope, and I cannot get enough of it. Alice is such a people pleaser as well, and since she's been taken and she's learning to stand up for herself and not be walked all over, there is such personal growth that we love to see. And Luca is just so supportive and protective, even when they're both in captivity. It's just such a sweet story, and I love it so much. It's a little spicy. I wish there was a couple more spicy scenes, but the spicy scenes in it are just so good. This was swoony and it was fun, and I gave it a 4.5 star rating just because I kind of wanted it to be a little bit spicier, but the story was just so sweet and I loved it so much. The next book I read this month was The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. Now, I have an entire reading vlog dedicated to this book, which I will link below, so you can watch me lose my mind as I read this book. I did have a little bit of a mental breakdown in the middle. Now, this book is about three women, Siobhan, Miranda and Jane, and they're all meant to be going on a date with Joseph Carter, but he does not show up to any of them, and they're trying to find out what happened to him, and it's their story altogether. Now, I give this book a 3.75. It was good. I enjoyed it. I really loved these female characters. I loved that Jane was really quiet and shy and she was learning to come out of her shell. Miranda was pretty average, but in the way that we all average. You could see yourself most in Miranda because she's just living her life every day like the rest of us do. Siobhan was really lively and really bubbly, but had some deep-seated personal trauma. And I love all of them, I really do. I really loved seeing these women's stories and how they all interconnected through this one man. I just don't like him. I just didn't see the appeal at all. So I ended up giving it a 3.75. It's good. I would definitely recommend it. I would recommend it if you're less petty than me though. The next book I read this month was Fence Volume 5. I really liked this one as well. I gave this a 3.75. This was really cute. I loved it. It's just, I'm not a sports girly, so trying to get me to care about sports is really difficult. If you can get me to care about a sport in any form of media, then you're doing very well, because I will 100% tune out. I love the tension and I love the rivalries in this story, and the artwork is stunning. It's just that every time they started talking about fencing and the sport itself, it goes completely over my head and I just tune out. I just don't care. I want to see the tension and the rivalries and the romances. I just don't care about the sport, which is kind of a shame because that's the entire point of the book. The entire point of this whole series is that they're all into fencing. They're all in this fencing club. So I wish I could be a sports girly. Unfortunately, I'm just not. But this is still really, really adorable. It's so cute and I love it so much. And if they come out with more, I am going to keep reading it. Next on my list of books I read this month was Kingdom of the Feared by Kerri Maniscalco. Again, this is the Fairy Loot edition and it is absolutely beautiful. Like, oh my gosh. Under the Dust Jacket. Absolutely beautiful artwork. I don't want to say too much about this book because it is the last one in a series, but this is about our main character Victoria, who summons a prince of hell when her sister dies. It's beautiful. It's set in Italy and it's just so atmospheric, and I love that. I gave this book 4 stars. I really love this series, but the fact that it's categorised as YA, it's absolutely not YA. I can guarantee it's not YA. I read spicy books for fun, and this had me needing a cold damn shower because oh my days, especially the second book. The second book, damn. But with this one, I just came for the vibes. I read the first one and I loved it. The second one was hot as all hell. And this one, I only came for the vibes. And I feel like there was just too much plot for me, which is a strange problem to have in a fantasy book. And the things at the end that were just kind of left a little open-ended, and there were some things that were just unanswered. Just tie it up in a nice little bow. I'm fairly certain she's actually doing another book in this series about one of the side characters, so I'm probably going to pick that one up as well because that just sounds like a good time. But I gave this one 4 stars. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I have such a good time with this series. Next up this month I read Angel Fall by Susan E. Again, the Fairy Loot edition. And Under the Dust Jacket. Fairy Loot is absolutely popping off with these editions, I swear. So in this we have our main character Perrin, and she's just trying to survive after the angel apocalypse that happened 6 weeks ago, where the angels came down from heaven and they have destroyed everything. They are in a full dystopia. But when one of them tries to take her little sister, she will stop at nothing to get her back, even if she has to side with one of the angels themselves. You can tell this book was published in like 2011 because it's very much a product of its time. It feels a lot like some of the other fantasy dystopians from that era, and they all kind of blend together. There was nothing really that stand out in this one. I like the short chapters in this, and in this edition the print is really big, which makes it really easy to read, which is such a weird thing to like about a book, but it meant that I flew through it so fast. The relationship between Perrin and Raph progressed way too quickly. Like, there was very little to no relationship development there at all. It went from them begrudgingly becoming allies to him willing to throw down his life for her, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm intrigued by the plot, so I'm going to continue reading this series, but overall it was just a bit meh to me. Didn't really have a lot about it. The next book I read this month is another one on my Kindle, and that was The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert. When Lenora's ex steals the family heirloom, she makes a deal with the Bargainer Demon in order to get it back. And then her and the Bargainer Demon get up to some shenanigans. That's what we're going with. We're calling them shenanigans. This book was another kind of swing and a miss for me. I gave it a 2.5 stars. It wasn't bad, it was just meh. Like, it didn't really have much to it. It was very insta-love, which just doesn't work for me. I didn't buy their emotional connection whatsoever. I find that in novellas, when they hit the I love you, and it seems to be really, really quick that they hit the I love you, I just don't see why they do that in novellas. It doesn't make any sense. I like the plot, but everything else in the book just kind of came up short. I did like that the Bargainer Demon was non-binary. I liked that part of it, and I like how it tied some of her other series together. But this, overall, it just wasn't it for me. Like, the spice was fine, but I know that she's done ones that work better for me. This one just wasn't it. The next book I read this month was The Marriage Game by Sara Desai. This is about our main character Layla. After her world completely falls apart, she moves back in with her parents, and her dad, who would do anything to see her smile, offers her the office space to use to set up her new business. However, there's a bit of a breakdown in communication because her dad has also rented the office space to the CEO of a downsizing company named Sam. The man is called Sam, not the company. And unbeknownst to Layla, her dad has also set up an online dating profile for her, and these men start coming to her new office for a series of blind dates. So they're forced to share this office space together. Since they don't both want to share the office space, they make a bet. If Sam can find her a match and a husband, then he would get the office. If he cannot find her a match and a husband, then she gets the office. And so the game begins. Now, this book, I gave it a 2.5 star. And I still feel like I'm being generous with that 2.5 star. Because I really did enjoy the first half of this book. I really did. The dates and everything and the banter back and forth, I loved that. This is a romance, so it's not really a spoiler to say that there's a third act breakup, but this man, he done gone fucked up. He fucked up in what I think is a pretty big way. I'm trying my best not to spoil this book, but I really want to, because what he did was so disrespectful, and he did zero grovelling to make up for it, and that annoyed the fuck out of me. The grovelling that he did was basically getting his business partner to do it for him. If you fuck up, you cannot outsource your grovelling. You can't get someone else to do the grovelling for you because it negates the point. Ugh, I hate him. I hate him after this. Like, I was so on his side and he made me hate him. I'm just disappointed. I'm so disappointed and I'm so mad about it. This one's got me heated. And then, after he has done zero grovelling, she is the one that goes back to him? Nah, baby girl, we deserve better than this. He's not the worst one that she dated, but like, fucking hell, do better. I love the family aspect of this. I loved all the family dynamics. I love seeing Layla and Sam's sister and everyone else, but I'm mad about it. I'm mad about it. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I can feel my blood pressure rising, so we're going to move on to the next book. The next book I read this month was Fangs by Sarah Anderson. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It's just so cute and wholesome. It's a romance between a werewolf and a vampire, and it's snippets throughout their relationship. If you went through an emo phase, if you went through a pop punk phase, if you have worn excessive eyeliner at any point in your life, I feel like this book is for you. It's so sweet and so wholesome, but also a little bit dark and a little bit emo, but in the best, most adorable way. I got this as a gift from one of my friends for Christmas, and I love this book so much. It's also just a really nice book to hold. You know how some books just feel better in your hands? Like, they just fit your hands better. This is one of those. It's just so cute and it's so pretty. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. It's just adorable and I think everyone should read it. The next book I read this month was another one on my Kindle, and that was Captured by the Alien Warrior by Presley Hall. This is about our main girl Tara, who's been on the run for the past 3 years after escaping her captors that abducted her from Earth. Now, she had to make a shady deal in order to escape her captors, so she is in vast amount of debt with this loan shark type character, so she becomes a pickpocket and a thief just to be able to get by. And one day she is tasked to steal something from our main guy Rook, but he captures her and he makes her give back what she stole. However, he helps her find another way to pay back her debts. I gave this book a 2.75. Her trust issues didn't really make a lot of sense for me. I get that she has them because she lives on a planet where human women are sold as sex slaves, so she hides her identity and he reveals her identity pretty much as soon as he captures her. But the mating bond part was an issue for her. That didn't make any sense to me. I'm confused. Everyone knows that if you make a deal with a mob boss, you're never getting out of that deal, ever. The interest on that is infinity. So the heist was so fucking pointless. They could have just ran away. They could have, honestly, he could have just been there like, I'm gonna get you out of here, and he'd just take her away, and then the ending of the book would have still been the same. The next book I also read on my Kindle, and that was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. This book is about our main character, Cinnamon. She just wants to help run her family's spice farm and just have a quiet life. She's not about that adventure thing. But one time she's out with her friends and she gets a little drunk and she saves a demon, as it says in the title. The next day, the demon that she saved, Fallon, turns up at her house and he wants her help to kill the witch that has enslaved his people. So she reluctantly agrees to go with him on this adventure. I gave this book a 4.75. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. This is now an instant buy author for me. I loved this book so much. The only reason I gave it a 4.75 is because it took me a little bit at the beginning to get into it. This book is so fucking hilarious. It's so fun. I just had the best time reading this book. And I recommend it to absolutely everyone. I'm going to be buying everything that she puts out from here on in. I think her writing is just so fun and so funny. And it's genuinely, like, this shit is the reason why I read. I also gave it a 3 spice rating out of 5. Because while the spice isn't a lot throughout the book, it is mostly plot based. My good God, that is a dirty talking demon. If you like the cozy fantasy vibes and you like spicy books, I feel like this book is absolutely for you. I think once I got really into the story, I don't think I stopped laughing one time throughout reading this. I can't say enough good things about this book. I love it so much. The next book I read in January was The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. Again, this is the absolutely stunning Fairy Loot edition. So gorgeous. I read a lot of Fairy Loot editions this month. Go me. I don't want to say too much about this book because it is the second one in the series and it is the last one in the duology. In this one, she's made a promise to her stepmother that she is honour bound to fulfill, and that is all I'm going to say on the matter. This one I gave 3-star rating, but that's more me than the book, I think, because I read the bulk of this book while I was experiencing severe PMS, and my brain was just not registering a whole lot, to be honest, other than owie. So while I did read this book in its entirety, I don't know how much of it actually went in. It was just not a good time to read fantasy because my brain was wallpaper paste. It was just mush soup. But also, everything in this story moved so fast. I like the romance storyline. It was a little love triangle-y, but I like the direction that it ended up going. It was fine. It was pretty middle of the road to me. But again, that was a me problem, not the book. The next book I read in January was the Heartstopper yearbook. Now, if you've not read Heartstopper or watched the TV series, what are you doing? Do you not like joy? This series is just a series that will make your soul happy. It's like, I gave this book a 4.25 because it was kind of irrelevant, but it was still interesting to see how the story and her artwork and everything had progressed throughout the years. And it was just a good little placeholder, I guess, in order to wait for volume 5 to come out. Patiently. Let's be honest, it's not patiently at all. I'm waiting very impatiently for volume 5 to come out, or season 2, whichever one comes first. I will be fine with both. But like, oh my god, I need volume 5. Like now. But this one was cute, and it was fun, but it was just kind of pointless. But I still gave it 4.25 because I love this series, I love these books, and Alice Oseman is an absolute genius. And finally, the last book I read this month was The Miserable Mill by Lemony Snicket. This is the 4th book in the series of Unfortunate Events, and if you don't know what the series of Unfortunate Events is about, there's a TV series, a movie, and the books have been out forever. Our main characters are Violet, who's 14, Klaus, who's 12, and Sunny, who is just a toddler. And they are moved from guardian to guardian, from place to place, to avoid the evil Count Olaf, who is trying to get at the fortune that these young orphans will inherit when the eldest, Violet, turns 18. Now, in this book, they've been sent to live and work at a woodworking factory. This is a series that I loved so much as a kid, and I want to complete this series, and I plan to complete this series. But no matter what, the nostalgia just doesn't hold up, and that is such a shame. I gave this book a 1.75 because there were parts of this that made me really uncomfortable reading it as an adult. First of all the adults in this series just frustrate the fuck out of me. Like, why are they being taken care of by a banker instead of a social worker? If this is set in the real world, they'd be taken care of by a social worker, and they would find the placement for them, and the social worker would actually give a fuck about these kids. No one gives a fuck about whether these children who are, like, one of them is an infant. No one in this world cares about these children's safety whatsoever. The Mr. Poe just tries to pawn them off on anyone that will take them. No one actually gives a fuck about whether or not these kids are safe. Like, you've got a toddler around woodworking milling equipment. Why? And the person they're on the run from, Count Olaf, is always in disguise, and in this book he is disguised as a woman, which results in a very uncomfortable argument about pronouns, and it just didn't sit well with me. I am gonna still finish this series because I do want to know how the series itself ends, and they are very quick reads, but this one just made me icky, and I feel bad that I'm leaving this month on a bad note, but it just doesn't work for me. So that's all the books that I read in January. Tell me in the comments below which one was your favourite of these that you've read, or what was your favourite book that you read in January. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It's been lovely having you here, and I hope to see you in another video soon.